Hello, and thank you for taking time to learn a little bit more about Tennessee Promise and the information that your student received at their Tennessee Promise Fall Informational Assembly in October. My name is Amanda Bolden, and I am with Tennessee Achieves. Tennessee Achieves is the partnering organization to the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, who will work directly with your student as they are meeting the Tennessee Promise eligibility requirements and transitioning from high school into college and throughout their scholarship eligibility. The handbook that you see on the screen is the marketing material that we did provide to your student at the assembly in October. This is the class of 2020 student handbook. This handbook has everything that your student needs to know in regards to the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, the eligibility requirements, and the college enrollment and college success information as well. This handbook is extremely important that your student keeps up with, and also that your student becomes familiar with the contents of the handbook. If your student has a question regarding Tennessee Promise, more than likely the answer can be found in the student handbook. In October, Tennessee Achieves visited all 90 counties that we partner with and met with every public high school senior to deliver this student handbook to them and have a brief 20-minute assembly regarding the Tennessee Promise Scholarship and eligibility requirements, which I will highlight with you today. If your student does not have a physical copy of this handbook and they were not in attendance on the date that Tennessee Achieves visited their high school, they can visit their school counseling office to retrieve their copy of their student handbook, or visit our website tnAchieves.org under class of 2020. They will find the handbook PDF on our website, and it can be downloaded, it can be printed, but we just want to ensure that the student has some version of the student handbook, and also that the parents also are aware that you have access to this handbook at any time. So again, today I will walk through the information that we did relay to your student in October, and I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead in the handbook to page 3 to point out the Tennessee Achieves contact information. So if you do have a follow-up question about any of the content that we discussed today, you are more than welcome to reach out to anybody on the Tennessee Achieves team. My name is Amanda, and I'm happy to help answer any questions, but we can be contacted via email or phone as well. But page 3 is a complete list of all of our Tennessee Achieves team, and we will be the team that does work with your student as they are remaining eligible for Tennessee Promise. So in the student handbook, you will find on page 4 an overview of Tennessee Promise and the relationship with Tennessee Achieves. So Tennessee Promise is a last dollar scholarship that funds tuition and mandatory fees for up to 5 semesters at a community college or eligible four-year institution, and up to 8 trimesters at the Tennessee College of Applied Technology. And that's often referred to as the TCAT. So community colleges are great places for students to begin to earn their associate's degree, and some students decide to enter into the workforce upon graduation or transfer to a university. There are a handful of eligible four-year institutions that are Tennessee Promise eligible, and they are eligible because they offer associate degree programs. And the TCATs are also Tennessee Promise eligible institutions, and a TCAT is a great college for students to attend to earn a certificate or a diploma, and the focus is really on skills and trades. And I will get into the list of eligible institutions, and you will find that complete list on page 16 of the student handbook. So this is a list of all of the eligible institutions. Again, any of the 13 community colleges or 27 TCATs, and a handful of private colleges and public universities that are Tennessee Promise eligible. A couple of things to note about the private colleges and public universities is that in order to use Tennessee Promise at a private college or public university, the student must be enrolled in the associate program that that institution offers. So they could not be a bachelor degree seeking student and be Tennessee Promise eligible. The other caveat regarding private colleges and public universities is that at a four-year institution, the Tennessee Promise Scholarship may not be completely last dollar, which means it may not fully cover all tuition and mandatory fees at a private college or public university. The amount of funding that a student would receive at a private college or public university for their associate program is going to be the equivalent of that they would receive at a community college for their associate degree program, and that would be from Tennessee Promise. So if your student is planning to utilize Tennessee Promise at a private college or public university, I would strongly encourage you to touch base with the financial aid office at that institution to determine what your student would be responsible for in regards to tuition and mandatory fees, and also to determine if there are any other additional sources of scholarships or grants at their institution that your student may qualify for as a Tennessee Promise student that may help towards that cost as well. But at a community college and a TCAT, the scholarship is last dollar. So let me get back to the overview of Tennessee Promise. So a last dollar scholarship means that Tennessee Promise will be applied to a student's financial aid account after any state or federal scholarships and grants have been applied. So that's what that last dollar component is that state and federal scholarships and grants such as a Pell Grant, a Hope Scholarship, the Wilder Navy Scholarship, a TSAA grant, those are applied first, and Tennessee Promise will cover the remaining tuition and mandatory fee balance for the student as long as they maintain Tennessee Promise eligibility. Tennessee Promise will begin the fall immediately following high school graduation for all eligible students, and the scholarship duration of eligibility is up to 5 semesters at a community college and up to 8 trimesters at a TCAT. Tennessee Promise is paid directly to the student's financial aid office. So the student will never receive a physical check from Tennessee Promise. It is awarded straight to the financial aid office. And Tennessee Achieves, the organization that I am with, we are a nonprofit partnering organization to Tennessee Promise, as I said before. So we will work directly with your student as they complete the scholarship requirements, which includes facilitation of the mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting, communicating with students regarding the Tennessee Promise FAFSA completion deadline, and also Tennessee Achieves provides mentors to all Tennessee Promise students who apply for the scholarship by the deadline and file the FAFSA by the established deadline. Page 5 is a great reference for you and your student in regards to what the eligibility requirements are for the Tennessee Promise scholarship, as well as additional information that your student will need to follow in order to ensure that they are enrolling for the fall immediately following high school graduation. So on page 5, you will see several bullets, points highlighted in green. These are the Tennessee Promise eligibility requirements, which means that if there is something that is listed here in green, that it is 100% mandatory for your student to meet this deadline or this requirement in order for your student to maintain Tennessee Promise eligibility. If your student fails to meet one of the deadlines highlighted in green, then your student would permanently lose Tennessee Promise eligibility, which means that once a student loses eligibility, it cannot be regained. So everything listed in green are the eligibility requirements. Everything that you see listed in the grayish color, those are what we call priority deadlines. So that is what we strongly encourage students to meet in order to ensure that they are enrolling in their post-secondary institution in a timely fashion. And for Tennessee Promise eligibility, students are required to enroll at a Tennessee Promise eligible institution the fall immediately following high school graduation. So the first deadline that you will see listed in green is that students had to have applied for Tennessee Promise by November 1, which your student should have applied for the Tennessee Promise scholarship as the class of 2020 online at tnpromise.gov by November 1st. There was not an ACT or a GPA requirement for Tennessee Promise eligibility. If a student is graduating from a Tennessee high school and they are a Tennessee resident and they met the November 1st deadline, then they would qualify for eligibility. Now, in order to maintain eligibility, as I've said, there are several requirements that students must meet in order to ensure that they are retaining their scholarship eligibility. The next requirement is going to be that your student will be required to file the 2020-2021 free application for federal student aid, which is often referred to as the FAFSA, no later than February 1st, 2020. In the student's handbook, it does go into more detail beginning on page 8 regarding FAFSA completion. So I'm actually going to turn to page 9. So the FAFSA is the main financial aid application that all students, regardless of where they plan to enroll for post-secondary, must complete, because this determines if a student qualifies for any state or federal scholarships and grants. And as I said at the beginning of today's informational session, the Tennessee Promise is last dollar applied after any state or federal scholarships or grants. So this FAFSA application is extremely important because it will determine if your student does qualify for a federal Pell Grant, the Hope Scholarship, or a TSAA grant, which is essentially a state grant that stands for the Tennessee Student Assistance Award. These scholarships and grants are going to be determined either based off of a student's FAFSA completion and what was reported on the student's FAFSA, or academic. So the Hope Scholarship is a state academic scholarship that high school seniors can qualify for depending on their GPA and ACT scores. So the FAFSA is the main financial aid application, and it is mandatory that every student file the 2020-2021 FAFSA by February 1st, 2020 in order to remain eligible for Tennessee Promise. A couple of key pieces I would like to point out about FAFSA completion is your student can file the FAFSA now. The 2020-2021 FAFSA opened on October 1st. The correct website to go to file your student's FAFSA is www.fafsa.gov. Please make sure that you are visiting fafsa.gov to complete your student's financial aid application. There are unfortunately some websites out there that do ask you to pay $80 to file the free application for federal student aid. The key word there is free. You will never be asked to pay to file the FAFSA if you are at the correct website. So please make sure you are visiting fafsa.gov. The FAFSA is going to be filed for your student. So you will need to make sure that your student is filing FAFSA using their name, their social security number, their date of birth. In order for your student to successfully file the FAFSA, they must have their 2018 tax information if they have 2018 taxes, but they also must have parent or guardian 2018 tax information as well. Even if your student is 18 years old, the federal government considers students a dependent of their parent or guardian until the age of 24. So they will be required to provide parent or guardian 2018 tax information in order to successfully file the 2020-2021 application. So please make sure that you are gathering your W-2 information, your tax return information, because this is what the FAFSA will reference and will ask for in regards to your tax information. Again, the FAFSA is going to be filed based off of your student's information, but they do have to have parent or guardian information as well. Prior to FAFSA completion, the student and the parent or guardian will be required to create an FSA ID. Page 8 goes into a lot of detail about FSA ID. So the FSA ID stands for the Federal Student Aid Identification, and it gives students and parent and guardians access to the Federal Student Aid's online systems, and it also serves as your legal signature for the student's FAFSA and the legal signature for your student for their FAFSA as well. So the student and the parent or guardian will both be required to create 2 separate FSA IDs. So your student will create one FSA ID for them, and the parent or guardian will also be required to create an FSA ID using your personal information. You will see listed here under creating your FSA ID the steps to take in order to create this identification. You will visit fsaid.ed.gov and it will prompt you through different steps. You will be required to create a username, a password. You will have to provide your personal information and your email address. And your student will also be required to follow the same steps to make their FSA ID as well. I would strongly encourage you and your student to write the FSA ID down and hold on to it and keep it in a safe place. This is confidential information, but it is information that you will need in order to access your student's FAFSA as well as to sign the FAFSA. So store this in a safe place for the times that you may need to reference it. After you create your FSA ID, you will then go to FAFSA.gov and you will begin to file your student's 2020-2021 application. Please make sure that you are selecting the 2020-2021 year. If you do file the incorrect year, even if it is by the February 1st deadline, then that would not meet the Tennessee Promise requirement. So please triple check that you are filing the 2020-2021 FAFSA application. Your student is encouraged to file the FAFSA as soon as possible. There are some scholarships and grants that are awarded on a first come, first served basis. So the sooner your student files the FAFSA, the better their chances of maybe qualifying for additional aid. So I would strongly encourage your student to file FAFSA as soon as possible, but the absolute deadline is February 1st, 2020. We always encourage for students and parents to be proactive in this space because the FAFSA is an application that may take a little bit of time, and so just please make sure that you are getting it filed as soon as possible. And once you do file the FAFSA and you hit submit, your student will receive a confirmation email from Federal Student Aid to the email address that was provided on the FAFSA. So your student is encouraged to hold on to this confirmation email for their records and keep it in a safe place in case they may need to reference it in the future. Page 10 goes into FAFSA facts, and one that I would really like to point out is the IRS data retrieval tool. So I have said several times that parent and guardian 2018 tax information is going to be needed in order to successfully file the student's 2020-2021 FAFSA. The IRS data retrieval tool is something that is embedded into the FAFSA, and it allows students and parents to access the IRS tax return information needed to complete the FAFSA, and it will easily transfer the data directly and accurately into the FAFSA from the IRS website. So this is a great tool that I encourage everybody to try to use if possible, because this will eliminate a lot of steps for you in regards to providing your tax information. It will automatically link the student's FAFSA and pull in the information from the IRS website. If you are unable to use the IRS website, then that is okay as well. You'll just need to manually put in the information as it is asking on the student's FAFSA. If you or your student ever have a question regarding the FAFSA while you are completing the FAFSA, please feel free to reach out to tnAchieves. There is also with each question a information box that you could hover your mouse over on the computer to get more information regarding the question or what is needed in order to answer the question. You can also reach out to your student's school counselor to determine if they are offering any sort of FAFSA completion events or if they are setting up appointments for you to have active assistance with filing FAFSA. You can also reach out to the potential school that your student may be enrolling in the fall for college, and they may also offer FAFSA completion assistance as well. So please do not feel like you're alone in the FAFSA completion space. You have so many people there to help you. So please make sure that you are utilizing your resources and that you are reaching out if you need any sort of help. But again, your student's FAFSA is due by completing it online at FAFSA.gov no later than February 1st, 2020 for Tennessee Promise scholarship eligibility. So that is the next deadline, is students have to file their FAFSA by February 1 in order to maintain Tennessee Promise eligibility. After FAFSA completion, the next requirement is that your student is going to be assigned to attend their assigned Tennessee Promise mandatory meeting in the spring. So you will see page 7 goes into more detail regarding the team meetings. So it is required that students attend their assigned mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting that is designated for their high school in order to maintain Tennessee Promise scholarship eligibility. At the meeting in October, we did go over the mandatory meeting attendance with your student, and we also pointed out the student's mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting date. A full list of Tennessee Promise mandatory meetings can be found on our website, tnAchieves.org, or in the back of this handbook, pages 28 through 39. Your student is going to be assigned to attend their mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting that is assigned for their high school. So for example, if your student is an Anderson County High School student, your student will be required to attend the Anderson County High School mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting in the spring. So students are required to attend their assigned mandatory meeting. Parents, you are encouraged to attend the Tennessee Promise meeting with your student. However, you cannot attend in place of your student. Your student has to be there. Work and lack of transportation are not reasons for your student to miss this assigned mandatory meeting. We do understand that there are some things that may happen that conflicts with the night of your student's assigned mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting, which is why we have implemented the Tennessee Achieves excuse form policy. So the excuse form policy can be found in the back of the student handbook or on our website, tnAchieves.org. In the handbook, it is listed on page 40, policy number 2, and it states that students are required to attend their assigned mandatory meeting. There are a handful of excusable absences that are highlighted in policy 2A, which is considered an excusable absence from the student's assigned Tennessee Promise meeting. So if your student feels that they have an excusable absence as highlighted in policy, a couple of examples of that would be a school sanctioned event. So if your student is participating in an athletic game or they have some sort of club competition on the night of their mandatory meeting, practices, scrimmages, any sort of just a meeting or a rehearsal, that is not considered an excusable absence. It has to be an active competition that your student is competing in that is with their school on the night of the meeting. A death in the family, a doctor's excused illness, a post-secondary class conflict, all of those are several examples of what is highlighted in policy 2 on page 40, which you will find in the back of this student handbook. So if your student has an excusable absence as highlighted in policy, your student would be required to visit tnAchieves.org under class of 2020 and complete the meeting excuse form on our website and provide the documentation that is requested with each of the excusable absences in the policies. Your student will need to complete their meeting excuse form anytime before their assigned mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting, but the Tennessee Achieves excuse form must be turned in by the student within 72 hours following their meeting in order for their excuse to be considered for approval. So for example, if your student has a meeting on, let's say Monday, March the 2nd, they can complete the excuse form anytime before Monday, March the 2nd, but the excuse form must be turned in by Thursday, March the 5th, in order for their excuse to be considered for approval by Tennessee Achieves. Only a Tennessee Achieves staff member can approve or deny a student's excuse form. If your student is approved by Tennessee Achieves to miss their assigned Tennessee Promise meeting, then your student would be required to go to another high school's Tennessee Promise meeting, arrive early to sign in, and remain in attendance for the full duration in order for their attendance to be counted and to remain eligible for Tennessee Promise. So please keep that in mind. If your student is excused from their meeting because they have an excusable absence, they would be required to attend a makeup meeting at another school before the conclusion of all of the mandatory Tennessee Promise meetings. The meetings do last 1 hour in duration. It will be a lot easier for your student just to make all arrangements to be in attendance for the 1 hour meeting at their assigned school, which is the high school that they are enrolled in. At this meeting, we will go into more detail on the college enrollment process, the community service requirement, and your student is also paired to work with a tnAchieves mentor starting with this meeting. So every student that applies for Tennessee Promise and completes the 2020-2021 FAFSA by February 1st is paired to work with a tnAchieves mentor. And mentors are volunteers from your local community that are volunteering their time to help ensure that your student's transition from high school into college is as smooth as possible. So they are serving as a resource, as an additional contact for you and your student. If you have any questions regarding tnAchieves, the college enrollment process, what the next steps are, community service, that mentor will be that contact for you, and they will be a resource for your student. A mentor should reach out to your student via email or text message or phone sometime before the mandatory meeting. Probably around the beginning of March is when your student could expect to hear from a tnAchieves mentor. We also encourage mentors to reach out to parents if the information was provided on your student's Tennessee Promise application as well. So you may also receive communication from your student's mentor, and we ask that whenever a mentor reaches out, that students are responsive and kind to their mentor, and that they utilize the mentor as the resource that they are volunteering to be for your student. But your students will also be with their mentor at this Tennessee Promise meeting in the spring. Again, it is 100% mandatory that students attend their assigned Tennessee Promise meeting in order to maintain eligibility for the scholarship. And again, parents are encouraged to attend but cannot attend in place of the student. tnAchieves also talked a little bit about the community service requirement, which we will go into more detail on at the mandatory meeting in the spring. But I do want to get this on your radar because your students, as the class of 2020, could have begun volunteering for Tennessee Promise Community Service November 2nd, 2019. So as the class of 2020, November 2nd is the start date for community service. Your student's deadline for community service for the fall 2020 term is going to be July 1st, 2020. So it is going to be required that your students volunteer 8 hours in their community and turn the hours into tnAchieves using our online community service form by July 1st, 2020. So students will volunteer 8 hours in their community, and after they are finished volunteering, they will go to our website, tnAchieves.org. From any page on our website in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a link that says Submit Community Service Hours Here. The student will need to click on this link, and the student will have to provide their personal information, their name, first name, last name, the last four of their social, and their date of birth. Your student will be directed to the community service form after they insert their personal information, and they will have to answer several questions regarding the service that they volunteered. They will have to provide their direct supervisor's name, contact number, and contact email address on the community service form. So it's going to be important that they are obtaining that information when they are volunteering. We encourage your student to be proactive. Start looking for community service opportunities now. There are several opportunities listed at all times on our website, tnAchieves.org, but we do have a few parameters around what does count and what does not count for community service, which you will see here on page 22. Community service is strictly volunteer work, so your student cannot be paid for the hours that they are volunteering. Your student must also do something that is directly benefiting the community, so they could not volunteer just simply for an individual. So for example, volunteer with their neighbor to help rake their neighbor's leaves or mow their lawn or anything like that. It has to be something that's directly benefiting the community and something that they have a direct supervisor over. It's important to note that the direct supervisor cannot be related to the student. So it cannot be an aunt, uncle, grandparent, sibling, guardian, any type of relation to the student. Job shadowing also counts for community service, which is another great method for students to earn their hours as well as help build their resume and to determine if what they are potentially thinking about majoring in and making a career out of is in fact for them. So job shadowing does count as community service as well. But again, 8 hours of community service prior to every term enrolled. For fall 2020 eligibility, students must complete and submit 8 hours by July 1, 2020. One thing I will point out is that if your student is planning to enroll at a TCAT, so the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, and they have the opportunity to begin their program the summer immediately following high school graduation, they will be required to submit their first set of 8 community service hours by April 1st, 2020, and that would be for summer 2020 Tennessee Promise funding. But that's only for TCAT students and the TCAT students who have the option to enroll the summer following high school graduation. So I always like to end on page 5 because, again, this is a great overview of the Tennessee Promise eligibility requirements and what your students will need to do over the next several months in order to ensure they are maintaining their Tennessee Promise eligibility, as well as ready to enroll for the fall immediately following high school graduation. As I said before, Tennessee Promise is a last dollar scholarship that students can utilize at any community college, any TCAT, and a handful of private colleges and public universities. Even if your student is not planning to enroll at a Tennessee Promise eligible institution, we always encourage students to maintain Tennessee Promise eligibility up until that fall 2020 enrollment. So it is a requirement that students do enroll at a Tennessee Promise eligible institution the fall immediately following high school graduation in order to maintain eligibility. Even if Tennessee Promise is a plan B right now for your student, they are strongly encouraged to make sure that they are filing their FAFSA by February 1st. Again, the FAFSA is the main financial aid application that determines state and federal scholarships and grants. So regardless of where your student plans to enroll, they need to file their 2020-2021 FAFSA at FAFSA.gov. We also encourage your students to attend the 1-hour mandatory meeting and submit community service by the deadline, because you never know when Plan B may have to become Plan A, and if a student misses any of the eligibility requirements, they permanently lose eligibility for Tennessee Promise. So we do encourage students to maintain eligibility for as long as they can, or until their original plan is 150% confirmed that that is where they are planning to enroll. But we always encourage students, meet everything in green, maintain your scholarship eligibility just in case, because you never know what may happen between now and August 2020. So we do strongly encourage students to maintain Tennessee Promise eligibility, even if this may not be their first college choice as a Tennessee Promise eligible institution. But everything that, again, that you see listed in gray, that is just the priority dates that we strongly encourage students to meet. So make sure that they have applied for their college, that they are meeting all enrollment requirements with their post-secondary institution, that they are turning in any sort of financial aid documentation in addition to their FAFSA if requested. So page 5 is just such a great student checklist, and it also is a great reference for parents as well. Again, if you do have any questions regarding the Tennessee Promise Scholarship or Tennessee Achieves, please feel free to reach out to anybody here on the Tennessee Achieves team. We are happy to help in any way that we can at any time. The last thing that I will say is that every week, Tennessee Achieves will be emailing all of our eligible students. They will be every Monday like clockwork. We will be sending out an email to students. Parents, if your student provided your email or your phone number on the Tennessee Promise application, then we will also include you on the emails as well. So if your information changes at any time or your student's information changes at any time, it's very important for you to email Tennessee Achieves to let us know, because we do need to make sure we have your correct contact information. Tennessee Achieves will email your student again every single week. We also will email your student to remind your student of their mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting. That will go 2 weeks, 1 week, and the day before. And again, every time we email the students, we also email the parents. So if you are not receiving our emails, please reach out to Tennessee Achieves with your student's name, their date of birth, the high school they attend, and your contact information, so we can get that updated in our system to ensure that you receive all communication that your student receives. we are extremely excited to work with your student for the upcoming year and throughout their scholarship duration of eligibility. Again, my name is Amanda, so if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to Tennessee Achieves. We will be in touch with you often, and we will be in touch with you soon. But we are excited to begin working with you and your student for the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, and excited to see you all in a couple of months at the mandatory spring meeting. Again, please make sure your student's 2020-21 FAFSA is filed no later than February 1st, 2020, and make arrangements to attend the students' mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting. It is 100% mandatory for students to attend their assigned meeting, and parents and guardians are encouraged to attend as well. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.